everybody, and welcome to another episode of Ask the Expert. I'm Martha with SILCA, and this is Kat with Grey Goat, and she is our expert today on wrapping bar tape. Today she's going to walk us through the process and show us how it's done.
Hi everyone, my name is Kat, and as Martha mentioned, I am a mechanic here at Grey Goat Bicycles in Indianapolis. Today we are wrapping bars, but before we start, I want to preface that I will be showing you the recommended way to wrap this specific tape, but also factoring in different methods that I've learned. That being said, there are a number of ways to wrap. You may have a particular method that you love, and this hopefully will help you to figure out how to adapt that for this specific tape. So the first step wrapping new tape is, of course, to take off the old. So the first thing I'm going to do is pop out these end caps. I've got a flat head to help me there. Oh. Now I'm going to go ahead and unwrap this old tape. And after I get it off, I want to make sure that I check the integrity of the bars to make sure that there are no cracks that could be dangerous. Likewise, checking for other scratches, any type of surface damage that would make me worry about how strong they would be for the rider to continue using them. I want to make sure that I identify that. All good there. I'm going to flip these hoods up, and then I'm going to grab a wipe and go ahead and clean them off. The cleaner the surface is, the better the adhesive will stick to it, and the longer the tape will last. Be good on that side, and then you go to the other. So, we've already checked the integrity of these bars to make sure that there aren't any cracks or dents. The other thing that you might notice if you've never seen your bars exposed like this is that we have both Di2 wiring and hydraulic brake housing that runs underneath these bars. So it's important to check this electrical tape to make sure that it's holding those below the bars so they don't get in the way of the rider's grip. This electrical tape is in pretty good shape, so I'm going to leave it as is, but if it was cracking, breaking, drying out, I would certainly rewrap that too. So our next step, after we've checked both the bars and the housing, is to install these butterflies. And on other bar tape, you might notice just thin strips of tape that run under your shifters here. Those work okay. I don't tend to use them. I tend to just do a figure 8 and move on, but these butterflies I really like. And I like them because they're a little bit wider on each end, so they really cover both sides of these newer shifters to make sure that none of this plastic is exposed. Aesthetically, I think it looks a lot better. It also protects these from the elements, and when you're riding through gravel or water or anything else that comes your way, it's really important to keep these protected so you don't end up messing up your housing. I'm going to make sure to leave just a little bit of room so that I can still access this hose right here if I need to bleed the brakes. So now that we've installed this butterfly, we're ready to wrap the bars. Now I start bottom to top, and I will spiral outwards, so going clockwise on this side, counterclockwise on the other. I find that this is the method that works most for my grip to keep the bar or keep the tape tightening as I ride to ensure the longest lifespan possible. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to go once over pull tight. I'm leaving about 4 millimeters on the edge to help hold my compression plug in later. And this tape I can pull a lot on, it's quite strong. Not worried about breaking it. And once I've got that first full roll, I can start spiraling. As I spiral, I'm going to make sure that that adhesive is just barely touching the bars. Okay, so we're almost at the point where we've reached our shifters here. There are a couple of ways that we can go. I'm going to tell you about them and then I'm going to choose mine. So with older shifters especially, what I learned initially was to do a figure 8 here. That's something that you can do even without a butterfly, although the butterfly really helps. To do a figure 8, I would go over, leave a little bit of space, and then go back over, and back effectively like that, much tighter. That would be our figure 8. That's great for smaller, older shifters, but these are pretty beefy. And I've got this butterfly here to make sure that all of this is covered. Because I'm spiraling outwards, I can do what's called a stair step. So to do that, I'm just gonna keep pulling my tension. I'm gonna wrap once more under. Once more. I lied. And the issue that some people fall into here is wrapping too much and ending up with this like baseball right at the shifter. I don't want that. So that's why I'm pulling so much. I was able to get it back through once more. So now, I'm just gonna flip up. And there we go. And with my tension, I have reached the top of the bar. So this is the point where I'm going to start finishing the tape. I want to keep on spiraling on the top as I have been doing. You'll notice that this is a little bit denser up here than it is below to give a good meaty grip. That being said, I don't want to just roll this over and create a big bulge. I want to continue the spiral. So when I cut this tape, I'm going to check my sight line right there, so that ideally I end up with a tab that flips over but doesn't make this any more bulgy than it needs to be. So I'm gonna pull this tight. I have spanners available and I like to hold my place like that so I'm not worried about losing the tension that I've just created here. And the longer the scissors you have, the better. These are not that long. And the tape is pretty thick and tough. So your blade should be sharper than this. So I've got my tab, which ideally, that tension, and it'll flip over and go right there to finish my spiral. And this tape comes with finishing tape, but before I use that, I like to take a normal strip of electrical tape and lay this over my tab. And ideally the seam will be on the bottom. Ideally I want to pull that tight so it covers the edge of the tape, but doesn't sit on the bars itself. There we go. So we're nearing the end of this bar wrap. After we've installed that electrical tape, I'm going to put this finishing tape on. And before I wrap it, I'm going to pre-wrap to measure so that that seam ends up at the bottom of the bars. So now that I have a starting place, which is about 10 o'clock on my bars, I'm going to pull off that adhesive because I want that to be as clean and sticky as possible. You'll notice that I'm slowly peeling that adhesive off as I go to avoid any creases that may go. There we go. So now the only thing I have left to do is to fold that hood back down and insert the compression plug. So once we've loosened this slightly so it'll go in, I'm just going to make sure to fold those ends underneath. And as I press it down, I'm going to tighten to the right. And that will bring the compression plug inward.
Wow, that looks amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to do this with us today. Before we let you go, we just have a couple of questions. First off, what is your recommended maintenance for bar tape? Like after I ride, what do I do?
Sure, so after you ride, you want to make sure that there's not any dust, mud on there. I would wipe them off gently. I wouldn't use isopropyl alcohol just because of the adhesive, but also you don't want that grime getting in the way of your grip.
And then what thickness tape would you recommend?
So it totally depends on the type of riding that you're doing. This tape is pretty thick, so this would be great if I want a strong grip, especially if I'm riding in all conditions. If I'm out in gravel and rain and mud, this would ensure that I stay on those bars. Likewise, that thick grip would help with comfort. So if your hands tend to go numb while you ride, this would be ideal. But if you're racing in crits, you would do something lighter.
And how often should I be replacing my bar tape?
So ideally, if you're riding 4 or 5 times a week and keeping the bike in good shape once a year when you do your regular tune-up should be fine. That being said, sometimes I crash. And when I do that, if I notice any big tears or wear marks, I replace it right away. Otherwise, it'll start unraveling on me and make it harder for my hand to stay on those bars.
And funny you should mention that because we do have a crash replacement program here at SILCA. So if that should happen to you, feel free to reach out. All right, thanks for watching another episode of Ask the Expert, and thanks again to Kat for teaching us how to wrap bars.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for coming into our shop.
Yeah, it was great to be here. And if you have any questions or ideas for future videos, please leave them in the comment section below.